Hello everyone, my name is Tim Wheeler and I have designed an AI system for Uwe Rosenberg's Hallertau, which is definitely an enjoyable game for myself. I love all of the many of Uwe's games. He really got me back into this hobby. I used to play a lot of games as a kid, but he brought me back in and I was playing the solo mode, and I wanted some kind of interference, something to fight back or select actions. It felt like I needed something that would get in the way, so to speak. So, yeah, I made this system up. There's a rule book posted in the description, and please let me know if you have any feedback or what you think. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Okay, so to begin, take a d20 and grab a d10. This is really helpful in the one player mode. If you don't have one, it's okay. You can use a d20, that's fine. You can also use a random number generator on your phone. Here's our AI worker pool, and then everything else over here is set up as it would for a two-player game. We have pulled the quadrant card and cleared quadrants 1 and 2 correspondingly here to start off. So you're doing a two-player setup, except the AI does not need player boards. It doesn't need any of this. It just needs its workers each round. That's it. Now, I also have a standard reference apple just to show about how much space the AI will take up each round. Shout out, shut up and sit down. So we picked the hops deck and the beginner gateway deck, just so that everybody's familiar with those cards. You will need the full knowledge of how to play Hallertau in order to play this AI variant. Let's begin. The AI is going first, so we will roll a 20-sided die to determine where they go. Now, in the beginning of each round, as a human player would, they will target, there's a 75% chance that the AI will target these recently cleared quadrants. So we need to roll what is referred to as a cleared quadrant check. And this is to check to see if the AI will target these two quadrants. Now, if they fail the check, they'll roll a normal action selection roll, and therefore any of these spaces could be targeted by the AI. But in the beginning of the round, of each round, until the AI has placed twice in the recently cleared quadrants, wherever they may be, they will continue to roll this cleared quadrant check just to see if they will target these specifically. So let's do that now. So they rolled an 11, so it's 1 through 16 on the cleared quadrant check. If it's 1 through 16, they move on to a cleared quadrant roll. Now, this is where we need to go over the action space numbers that are assigned. So the entire board has action space numbers, and I'll count them off so that we're all familiar. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So all of your point cards are multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. And within, we have 1 through 4, 6 through 9, 11 through 14, and 16 through 19. And these just simply count over kind of like a book. So you start at the top left of the quadrant, move over, back down, and over to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is on page 2 in the book. So we passed the cleared quadrant check, and that means we're moving on to a cleared quadrant roll. And for a cleared quadrant roll, we only have 10 spaces. So instead of rolling our d20 for where each number corresponds with a space on the board, we have to divide that by 2. So if you're using a d20, this would be 1 and 2. You'd select sheep breeding. 3 and 4, sheep shearing. 5 and 6, clay delivery. 7, 8, farming. 9, 10, gateway card, and so on and so forth. I'm going to use the d10 just so because this corresponds directly with the 10 spaces that we have available. They have selected 1, 2, 3. Now, as a human player would not select some of these spaces in their first turn, if you refer to page 3, you can see that there are first round exceptions for clay delivery. It's only accessible in rounds 1 and 2 if it's the cheapest space that provides clay. So since we have 2 other spaces that provide clay, we're going to re-roll. And we got a 3 again. And we have a 1. Now, I'm glad that this quadrant was cleared first because these are specific situations. As once again, a human player would not trade milk for sheep because they don't start with any milk. So we'd have to roll again. 6. Butchery, another one. This is a first turn, and we've actually coincidentally rolled all of the spaces that we can't go in the first turn. We don't have sheep yet, so we can't convert them. 6 again. 9. Clearing. So the AI would place on 9 because its adjacent spaces, 8 and 10, are not cheaper. My turn. I am going to, you know what, I'm going to make sure I have some clay, so I'm going to go to the nursery. So I'll give myself 3 clay over here. Okay, now the AI has only placed once in the cleared quadrant. You can use a tool or something to slide over to remind yourself that they've placed once. Really just make sure that you keep track of 2 placements in the cleared quadrants. So now let's roll our cleared quadrant check to see if they're going to target these recently cleared quadrants. And it's 14, so they would target these. And now we move on to our cleared quadrant roll to see which space they will place on. We have a 7, so this is 6, 7. Now, because the nursery's adjacent spaces are cheaper, as a human player would be less likely to go to a more expensive place, the AI will now roll what is referred to as the deciding roll. Now this is to decide. So once again, the space we've selected is number 7, the nursery, and the AI needs to decide, okay, there's a 25% chance they will still place here. And this is just to keep you on your toes as a player. But if they roll a 1 through 9, if they roll a 1 through 8, they will place on the cheaper space to the left. If they roll a 9 through 16, they will place to the cheaper place on the right, or you could say the next higher space, so 7, 8. So 1 through 8 for the lower, which is 6, and 9 through 16 for the higher, which is busy weekend. Now, as the AI could have hypothetically gotten a sheep by now, and you can see this in the rules on page 3 for first round exceptions, as they would have hypothetically gotten a sheep by now, the butchery is available. Let's say hypothetically there was only 1 cheaper space adjacent to their selected space, then a 1 through 16 will simply select the cheaper space. But since we have 2, this is a great example for showing off how the deciding roll works. Okay, we rolled a 12. 1 through 8 would have placed in the butchery, but a 9 through 16 places on the busy weekend. So the AI will place on the busy weekend. We can mark off that they've placed in the cleared quadrants twice, so they're done with cleared quadrant rolls. And if the AI had rolled a 17 through 20, they would take 2 workers and place them on the more expensive originally selected action, but they didn't. All right, it is my turn, and I am going to just simply go for farming to get myself a high yielding field because I really like those. Now the AI is done with cleared quadrant checks, and if you look on page 4, they're going to do a normal action selection roll. This is a roll for 1 through 20. So whatever value shows up is the number that they will go to, that they will select. 12. So 11, 12. Now, the next lower space, 11, is the same cost. The next higher space, 13, is the same cost. So we don't need to roll a deciding roll to see if they would go to a cheaper space because there are no cheaper adjacent spaces. My turn. I'm going to go for I need to get some milk, and I'd like to get some crops. So I think what I'm going to do is, now I wanted to go to cultivation, but that is taken up now. So I think I'm going to go to our busy weekend, get 1 milk, and sow 2 crops. So I will sow I will sow 1 barley on our highest yield, and I will sow 1 flax on our next tier. Okay, it's the AI's turn. Now, whenever the AI has 2 or fewer workers left, they don't roll an action selection roll. They're going to roll a tool roll, and this is to determine whether they are going to convert those remaining workers to tools. This is on page 6. So let's roll the tool roll. A 1 through 12 means that the AI will move on to a action selection roll to find a space. They're not converting. A 13 through 20 means they just simply cash in their workers and they're done for the round. They rolled a 7, so they go to their action selection roll. And they rolled a 12. 11, 12. Now, here we are with a very specific situation. This is our 3 worker roll. Now, because the AI cannot go here, we're going to need to re-roll. There's no possible way they could go here. And most of the board is still open to them as they have 2 workers. 1, sheep breeding. Hypothetically, they could have some milk by now, so they will place on sheep breeding. Now, space 20 has a cost of 1, so it is more expensive, and its adjacent space is the same cost. There are no cheaper spaces, so we just simply place on 1. And for my last turn, what could be my last turn, I am going to gain 2 crops. I'm going to gain, oh no, I'm not going to do that. What am I thinking? I'm going to get a gateway card and take the starting player. Okay. AI is up. They roll their tool roll to see if they convert. They rolled a 3. They do not convert. So now we roll to see where they go. They rolled a 16. Now, this is when there are only 3 spaces or less that the AI can even go to, because they only have 1. We go to the closest space from where they rolled. So here is 16. If we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 away, we're at sheep shearing. If we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we're 9 away. So they're going to sheep shearing. We just keep counting until we get to a space they can actually go on. That's a very specific situation, and that is referred to as the limited option roll. That is on page 6 as well. All right, and for my last turn, I'm going to get a tool. Okay, so I will reset all of this and see you in a moment. Okay, so I've harvested my crops, moved my fields up and down. I used my one tool to slide this house over twice, use my resources, and we are now at the start of round 2. And we cleared the quadrant cards. We cleared the quadrants by pulling a card. So for our 2-player game, we have 1 and 3 that were cleared. So like last round, the recently cleared quadrants were 1 and 2. Now, when we do that cleared quadrant check, we're going to be targeting 1 and 3. And instead of having the numbers correspond like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, now they will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's for our cleared quadrant roll. And you can do this you can count up by intervals of 2. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, it'll be sheep breeding. If you roll a 3 or a 4, it'll be sheep shearing. You can do that if you'd like. I just find it easier to use the D10 if you have one. Now, the AI starts with 7 workers this round. I also start with 7 workers. I am the starting player, and I am going to get a sheep. What am I doing with this hops here? I'm excited to get some crops, so I already got the hops ready here. So I got 1 sheep. Got to get the milk engine going, you know. And some meat. Sorry to any vegans who are playing this game. Uwe makes great games, but this is the Hallertau region. I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, but I guess sheep were commonly eaten, and therefore meat is a resource in this game. Okay, so our cleared quadrants are here. I place my first move. It is now the AI's turn, and they're going to roll the cleared quadrant check. This is just to determine will they target these specifically. And they rolled a 20. So finally, for the cleared quadrant check, 1 through 16, they're going to target these 2. But a 17 through a 20 means we re-roll, and this is just a normal action selection roll. So now they can target anything. And the purpose of this is so that as a player, you never quite know where they're going to go. So they rolled a 14, which is in the cleared quadrant anyways. So 11, 12, 13, 14. So they would place 1 on land sale. And remember, very important rule for this AI system, you need to mark that that's their first time placing in one of the cleared quadrants. The next time they place in either of these, you can mark it with a tool or however you want to. You can just mentally keep track. But after their second move, they just go for normal action selection rolls. But until they've placed twice here, they're going to keep targeting 75% chance of going in these cleared quadrants to simulate a human player that would be targeting these cheaper actions. All right, so it is now my turn. All right, so our clay spaces over here are pretty well booked up. I could get a couple clay, but I think I'm going to get 2 crops. And I like to call these lamb rolls. Shout out to Feast for Odin. There's like a roll that one of the green tiles is a roll. But I'm going to get the lamb roll or the wool, the yarn, and I'll get 2 crops. So I'll get 1 hops and I will get 1 rye. Okay, AI's turn. Watch, he's probably going to, let's see. Now for the first rounds, okay, here we go. AI turn, cleared quadrant, check. And surprisingly, once again, they rolled an 18, so therefore they do not roll a cleared quadrant roll. They're going to roll a normal action selection roll. So we might not even need to use this D10 this round. And we won't, because they target the 11 that they rolled, coincidentally, is in one of the cleared quadrants. And I'm glad I went there last round, because they would have taken this. So if we look, cultivation, same cost. Small trade has a cost of 1, space 10, so this is 11. So the next lowest adjacent space, remember adjacency is not on the board, but it's numerically decided. So 11, 10, this is cheaper. Now we need to roll the deciding roll to see if they 17 through 20 decide to pay up and go here anyways, as a human player might, or if they just go to the cheaper roll. So 1 through 16, cheaper space. 17 through 20, 2 workers here. However, if this were also hypothetically cheaper, 1 through 8 would bring us down here to space 10. 9 through 16 would bring us to cultivation, and a 17 through 20 would keep us here. But since there's only 1 cheaper space, it's easy. 1 through 16 targets that space. And they are rolling some odd rolls here. So they got an 18, so they're just going to go for that small trade. They really wanted to age their sheep up, which I actually forgot to do when I went. So that's the second time they have placed in the cleared quadrant, so they are done with cleared quadrant rolls. My turn. I think I am going to grab up this clay delivery. What do you think? 1 worker for 2 or 2 workers for 4? Let's go 2 workers for 4. Although that farming is looking quite good. I do want to get some clay. So 4 clay brings us up to 5. All right, AI's turn. They're just going to roll a normal action selection roll because they've already placed in the cleared quadrants twice. And they roll a 19 in the sheep market. Now, 18 is the same cost. 20 is the same cost, so they just simply place in the sheep market. Only if there are cheaper adjacent spaces will they roll, then they will roll a deciding roll. My turn, I'm going for the farming. I got to. All right, so we'll do 1 hops, drop these down to plant 1 flax, 1 rye, and drop this down to plant 1 barley. I'll be swimming in crops, so to speak. All to brew, not all to brew, all to bake, manufacture, and brew us some beverages, some tasty beverages. All right, now, because the AI player has 2 or fewer workers left, they need to roll a tool roll. This is on page. Please refer to page. It was page 6 for the tool roll. Couldn't think of anything else to name it, so I just decided to stick with tool roll. All right. So 1 through 12 on the tool roll will cause the AI player to roll a normal action selection roll. 13 through 20 will end their turn immediately. Essentially, they convert their workers to tools, and they're done. Just as a human player may do at the end of their turn. But they are going to move on for an action selection roll. And we have an 8. So 6, 7, 8. Now this is a 3. Once again, we can't roll. Normally we'd roll a 3-worker roll to determine whether they actually commit to placing 3 workers on a space, which rarely happens. In this game, it only happens 90% of the time. Not 90% of the time, 90% of the time on a 3-worker roll. So it's quite rare. So we will need to decide which way they go with a deciding roll. And in this rare situation, because they cannot even go here, you can decide by just splitting this 50-50. They rolled a 6, so 1 through 10 would be low, 11 through 20 would be high. So they're going to go to the next cheapest space. Now that was not a limited option roll where we just continue to go until we find a space they can go to, because there are more than 3 spaces they could go to. There are many spaces that they could still go to. So they place their 2 workers on the nursery. All right. Our turn. Let's... Why don't we have lots of clay. So why don't we give this a go? Let's get some jewelry going. So we'll slide our house back 1, gain 2 jewelry, and there we have it. Now, that is essentially how the AI player works. There's a player aid in the rulebook to help show the flow of rolls they will take, and refer to page 3 for worker advancement, phase 2, to show you how many workers they will have at the start of each round. So this is the beginning. We'll say hypothetically, we clear these off to start round 3. A 1 through 10 would start the AI player with 8 workers, and 11 through 12 would start them with 9. So there's an 11 through 12, we rolled a 13. So the AI would start with 9 workers next round. Okay, please let me know what you think. I really love this game. I love Uwe Rosenberg games, and the solo mode, I just wanted to try to create some interference so that we can't just pre-program our whole turn, basically. I didn't play with cards because I wanted to keep this moving, but obviously you would play with cards, and whoever last goes on one of the card spaces will take the starting player. AI has no cards, and only uses some cards to determine their final score. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I know that was a little bit fumbly. The production quality is quite low, but I hope that made it a little bit more comprehensible. If you want to leave any comments, please let me know. If you have any feedback, my email and Board Game Geek account information are in the rulebook, so you can email me at timothywheeler84@gmail.com, or you could message me at thetinkler at boardgamegeek.com. Yeah, let me know what you think. I hope that this creates a little bit of interference for you, and I was inspired by the Solo in Gaia project, so the Autonoma Factory. I thought that was a good solo mode, and that kind of inspired me to create this system. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into it. Disclaimer, you will hear occasional train whistling throughout this video, like that, because I live near train tracks. Also, wow, okay. Yeah, okay, we got it